There are many other black people we have to talk about later, but in this we have to consider Al Jahiz and continue with his story, for he is one of those unapologetically black people in Islam, where some people were trying to fit in and become different. This guy was trying to stand out, and he wrote a book called The Superiority of the Blacks to the Whites. I'll say that again. The superiority of the blacks to the whites. And in the first one, he writes the Zanj, which is hilarious because some people in my chat have been coming in and trying to tell me that the Zanj aren't black and that they're from Zanzibar, which Zanzibar didn't even exist until like the 1700s. But let's read. Negroes say, everybody agrees that there is no people on earth in whom generosity is as universally well developed as the Zanj, and this is a quality found only in those of noble character. These people have a natural talent for dancing to the rhythm of the tambourine without needing to learn it. There are no better singers anywhere in the world, no people more polished and eloquent, and no people less given to insulting language. All other peoples in the world have their stammers, those who have difficulty in pronouncing certain sounds, and those who cannot express themselves fluently or are downright tongue tied, except the Zanj. Sometimes some of them hold forth before their ruler continuously from sunrise to sunset without needing to turn around or pause in their flow. No other nation can surpass them in bodily strength and physical toughness. One of them will lift a huge blocks and carry heavy loads that would be beyond the strength of most Bedouins or members of other races. They are courageous, energetic, and generous, which are the virtues of nobility, and also good tempered, and with little propensity to evil. They are always cheerful, smiling, and devoid of malice, which is a sign of a noble character. Some people say that their generosity is due to their stupidity, short sightedness, and lack of foresight. But our reply is that this is a scurvy way of commending generosity and altruism. At that rate, the wisest and most intelligent man would be the most niggardly and ungenerous, but in fact, the Slavs are more niggardly than the Byzantines, and the latter more intelligent and thoughtful. According to our opponents' arguments, the Slavs ought to be generous and open-handed than the Byzantines. The Zanj say to the Arabs, you are so ignorant that during the Jahiliyyah you regarded us as your equals when it came to marrying Arab women, but with the advent of the justice of Islam, you decided this practice was bad. Yet the desert is full of Negroes married to Arab wives, and they have been princes and kings and have safeguarded your rights and sheltered you against your enemies. Pause for a second there. This is an Arab from the 800 AD, and he's telling you about Negroes marrying Arabs at large rates. But let's carry on. We say that God did not make us black in order to disfigure us. Rather, it is our environment that has made us so. The best evidence of this is that there are black tribes amongst the Arabs, such as the Banu Sulaim B. Mansur, and that all the peoples settled in the Hara besides the Banu Sulaim are black. These tribes take slaves from among the Ashban, to mind their flocks, and for irrigation work, manual labor, and domestic service, and their wives from among the Byzantines, and yet it takes less than 3 generations of the Hara to give them all the complexion of the Banu Sulaim. This Hara is such that the gazelles, ostriches, insects, wolves, foxes, sheep, asses, horses, and birds that live there are all black. White and black are the result of the environment, the natural properties of water and soil, distances from the sun, and intensity of heat. There is no question of metamorphosis, or of punishment, disfigurement, or favor meted out by God. Besides, the land of the Banu Salim has much in common with the land of the Turks, where the camels, beasts of burden, and everything belonging to the people is similar in appearance. Everything of theirs has a Turkish look. The soldiers of the frontier garrison on the side of the Awasim sometimes come across Byzantine sheep mixed up with sheep belonging to the local inhabitants, but they have no difficulty in distinguishing the Byzantine flocks from the Syrian by their Byzantinity. When one comes across the descendants of Bedouin men and women who have ended up in Khorasan, it is immediately apparent that they are the barbarians of these parts. And then he also talks about the Indians, as people back then interpreted Indians as a black people. As regard the Indians, they are among the leaders in astronomy mathematics. In particular, they have Indian numerals and medicine. They alone possess the secrets of the latter, and use them to practice some remarkable forms of treatment. They have the art of carving statues and painted figures. They possess the game of chess, which is the noblest of games, and requires more judgment and intelligence than any other. They make Kadesh swords and excel in their use. They have splendid music, including that of the kankala, an instrument with a single string mounted on a gourd, which takes the place of many stringed lute and cymbals. They know a number of sprightly dances, and are versed in magic and fumigation. They possess a script capable of expressing the sounds of all languages, as well as many numerals. They have a great deal of poetry, many long treatises, and a deep understanding of philosophy and letters. The book Kalia wa Damin originated with them. They are intelligent and courageous, and have more good qualities than the Chinese. Their sound judgment and sensible habits led them to invent pins, corks, toothpicks, the drape of clothes, and the dyeing of hair. They are handsome, attractive, and forbearing with women, are proverbial, and their country produces the matchless Indian alloys which are supplied to kings. They were the originators of the science of fricke, by which a poison can be counteracted after it has been used. Mark for yourself down all the times that he said, "We are not like this and we are not like that." He constantly refers to himself when he's talking about general black people. Al Jahiz was neither Zanj or Indian, even though he's talking about both of these groups. He was actually Sudanese. And you can see here that Indian and Zanj are probably the most discriminated against compared to all the other types of black people, which is why he does not mention Sudanese or Abyssinians in any great detail, because Abyssinians were there as well. And here's the thing, black people in the Middle East, as he documented, they were fusing with Arabs at large rates, and still are really, but they were fusing with Arabs at large rates. And the reason for this is because prior to even Islam, these places were connected, and trading and moving. And so a lot of the benefits, a lot of the high statuses of the Arabian Peninsula are actually credited to black people, but the people don't know this because people just believe the Middle East is a Middle Eastern area with Arabs. That is why when they say ancient Egyptians or Middle Eastern, they don't think about the reality that Africans have been moving into the Middle East since before Egypt was even a thing. And I've shown you before obsidian and all these other things that were being traded by Africans like 10,000 BC into the Middle East. But again, you have to do deep dives in order to understand what is going on with this region. It is not as simple as Middle Easterners are black and Africans are white, or Africans are white and Middle Easterners are black. You're gonna be stuck if you think like that. But the worst part is the competition is now moved. If you notice, like when we start talking about Egypt and we start talking about places like that, the competition is now moved. Where before they were claiming that ancient Egyptians are white, now they're claiming that ancient Egyptians are Middle Eastern. And not only are they claiming this, they're claiming that there's not even a touch. I mean, that guy that I reviewed, he didn't even want to do more DNA tests. This is called the depression of the black man, where black people want to give up. Do not give up on Egypt. That is part of it. And even if we were only 10% of that population, which we were not, but even if we were only 10% of our population, that's 10% more than any European who ever existed in Egypt. I want to thank Minta Hathor for donating $5 and saying that the video is interesting. And yes, we have a lot to learn in these videos because there's a lot of misunderstanding of these regions and the people who live amongst certain people in Europe and in Arabia and in India. And I've shown you many, many, many real people, not the fantasies that some people try to bring of like, oh, Africans created Japanese people. None of that. Like real life people who did real things. And so I hope by the end of this, you will all have the courage that Al Jahiz had and the pride that he had in his people. So thank you for the $5.